Next video from Premier Smith. Somebody asked her at a community event, it looks like, why she didn't cut off oil and gas going to America. And she has a beautiful response that the media isn't talking enough about why. It's not just, like, Danielle Smith, you're a traitor for not cutting off oil and gas to America. She's actually saying, well, I'm trying to help with the rest of this country, Ontario and Quebec specifically. Let's hear it from her, though.
What I objected to is people telling me I should turn off oil and gas going to the United States. And the reason I object to that is because if the United States turns off oil and gas coming to Canada, Ontario and Quebec can get zero oil and gas. The only way they get their oil and gas is from America. And that's why I've said we're not doing it.
Boy, wouldn't it be nice if Doug Ford stood up for Ontario like that? Instead, they're like, yes, Alberta, burn your own jobs down. And it's like they're not listening to Trump when he says, everything you do, we will reciprocate. It's like they're not listening. She's the only person who listened in all of this.
The only person who listened to him. And again, it's not like he's secretive when he talks about these things. It's not like this is like cloaked under an umbrella of secrecy. He said, whatever you do to us, we are going to reciprocate. So don't think that that's going to be your negotiation tactic. Well, what do Ontario and Quebec do is test him on this. And I think that if anything, this illustrates again how qualified Danielle Smith is in dealing with her American counterparts and safeguarding Canadians and Canadian industry. I think she's the only premier in the entire country that has the best interest of Canadians at heart. Because to be completely honest, again, if she wanted to be petty, she could cut off oil and gas to Ontario and Quebec. She could do that and didn't. And I think that speaks a lot to her character and to her beliefs about what is best for Canada and Canadians.
And you know who's the real sort of petty jerk in all of this is Doug Ford. Like, he's never actually said, Premier Smith, we appreciate you ensuring that Quebecers and Ontarians don't pay $10 a liter gasoline tomorrow. Mm-hmm. He's never said that. In fact, they've sort of ganged up and kind of bullied her for her efforts to deal directly with the Americans to not go along with cutting off Canadian oil and gas, despite pressure from the feds, pressure from Doug Ford, who just basically mused, yeah, we'll turn off all energy exports. The heck you will. And even on the stuff he could control, it lasted all of like 3 hours worth of a threat. So, like, he's never actually said, Premier Smith, that was quite wise of you. Appreciate that. Never said that. He basically left her to just fight this fight alone. But Canadians who know better appreciate her for that. I think this is the clip where he's musing about turning off oil and gas. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was just B-roll. But he's never even thanked her for that.
No, but he wouldn't though, would he?
No.
Because that would acknowledge that Alberta and Saskatchewan and the Western provinces add something to the quality of life of Ontario. And the crazy thing is they live in such a cloistered sort of community that they believe that their quality of life just appears out of thin air, and that that the things that they get paid for on their behalf because of the hard work of Western Canadians that pay into the equalization formula, they only enjoy the quality of life they do because of the hard work of Westerners. And it would just be too much for Doug to acknowledge that. It's much easier. It's much easier for Doug to just pretend like everything that Ontario and Quebec gets just comes to them fully delivered without any interference from the Western provinces, and that's simply just not the truth.
I mused on X the other day, like, do Ontarians and Quebecers know what is happening to Western farmers to protect their highly subsidized EV industry? And most of them don't. They don't have a clue. The high cost Western farmers are paying due to Chinese tariffs in retaliation to liberal tariffs on Chinese-made EVs. They don't know. They don't know what's happening to farm income to pay for their jobs.
Nope,
We're
they
paying for them
absolutely
twice.
don't. They absolutely don't. And the only thing that's more unforgivable than not knowing is knowing and not caring.
Right.
That's what's unforgivable. And don't tell me that the upper echelons of Ontario and Quebec politics don't know that every single thing that they get paid for through the equalization formula doesn't come off the hard backs and off the hard work of Western Canadians. Of course they know. They just don't care. It's unforgivable. It's unforgivable.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to do my best to avoid broad sweeping statements. I would say a lot of people outside of the greater Toronto area. No, I think it's just like most places, urban municipalities think the food just appears on the grocery store shelves. It doesn't get grown somewhere else and then trucked in and taxed all the way in. But yeah, like Westerners are paying for those EV tariffs twice now because we paid for the bailouts and the subsidies. And now our Western farmers are being slapped with all the tariffs from China, which will decimate farm incomes this year. And from what I see, the minister, Philippe Champagne, he says they're not backing down at all on these tariffs against canola. So,
well, Philippe Champagne is doing nothing but stoking a unity crisis in Western Canada because when Western Canadians, because Western Canadian farmers are aware of how devastating these tariffs are going to be on their bottom line and their earning potential in the next year, and going forward, as long as this trade dispute is unresolved, you are going to see a growing sentiment for the separation of Western Canadians. Why stay in an abusive relationship where you will never, ever, ever be able to win? If we don't see overt support for Western industry and Western prosperity, they're going to have a two-front unity crisis on their hands.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me, I just have to step away to cough.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.